God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Again, I'm the worst with times, but I would say it was around like 12-ish that we kind of said, let's kind of head out and head home. I would say 12-ish.
Oh, fascinating here. Number of things. First, she says, once again, I would say. So it's not coming from memory. It's coming from what she knows. Right? How many times at this point has this person seen the waterfall video? The same amount that we've all seen it. So she knows exactly what time they left the waterfall. It's on video. Around 12. Okay? So she can't deny that because it's on video. But she also wants to make sure that she reiterates how bad she is with remembering times. That's the one very dominant story that she's directed to make sure she throws out here. And it's so obvious, it's painful to watch. But then, interestingly, she refers to leaving the waterfall and going home. And when she says going home, she's not talking about going to Easton. She's talking about going back to 34 Fairview, right? Which means in her mind, at the time that she's sitting at the waterfall, the plan in her mind was to sleep over at home. Home. When we say go home after we're going out, right? Picture yourself. You're going out to the bar. There's going to be a big snowstorm the next day. And when you think of going home, what does home signify? The last place that you're going to go. It's the end. That's it. We're not going anywhere else. I'm going home. So in Caitlin's mind, as she thinks back to being at the waterfall, as much as she's trying to contrive all of this BS to tell us a story, it slips in that in her mind at that time, she was going home, and the last stop was 34 Fairview, not wherever she was going in Easton.
You stayed believing that Tristan was going to try and rest and sleep, correct?
Yes.
And the plan when he left you was that you wouldn't see him again until after he was done with his plowing that morning, correct?
That's incorrect.
Okay. So is it your testimony that the plan from the beginning was that Tristan was going to drive from Canton to Easton and get some rest, and then drive from Easton to Canton to pick you up so that he could take you back from Canton to Easton? That was the plan?
It may not have been set in stone, but it was definitely spoken about, and then that's what ended up happening. Yes.
Have you ever told anyone that before, Ms. Albert, that the plan from the start of the night was that Tristan was going to make 4 trips total from Canton to Easton, Easton to Canton, Canton to Easton? Have you ever told anyone that before?
I don't remember if I mentioned that to anybody.
That was the first time you've ever said that, just now before this jury. Would you agree with that?
I believe so.
So this story that she's trying to sneak in about how, oh, the plan has always been from the beginning that I was probably going to go home with Tristan, isn't there then?
Approximately.
During the course of the time that you were at the waterfall, either before or after Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed arrived, how would you describe sort of the mood or the demeanor of the group that you were with?
I mean, I didn't notice any issues or any negative things happening. All the conversation seemed positive, lighthearted. Everyone was just kind of having a good time, getting along. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, really.
Yeah, so she throws in really to, just be sure to distance herself from anything that she's saying. She's got to get that in. And that's probably true. So remember, this is before Karen and John come in, and she didn't notice anything really. Nothing out of the ordinary. So the normal amount of difficulty, tension, whatever that would exist within a family out at the bar.
So no issues as far as fighting or tension between your group, is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as you saw, with regards to Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed, no issues as far as fighting or tension that you observed between the two of them?
Not that I observed. No.
Not that I observed. Again, with the not that I observed. And you have to listen to how she's stressing that. Because what that indicates is that she knows in her mind somebody else knew of tension. Somebody else had information about the relationship between John O'Keefe and Karen Reed that she didn't have, not at that time. So she just keeps doing this over and over. Every time that she stresses, I didn't know, what she's telling you is that she knows somebody else had information she didn't have.
And when you, around 12-ish or so, when you started to leave, who was it that, how did you come to leave and who did you leave with?
So I left with my mom and my dad. And again, I'm not sure the order of when like everybody else left. But I went with my mom and my dad back to 34 Fairview Road.
So this also, to me, there's so much distancing going on, right? So I believe all of that kind of language, which to me makes this questionable. I don't know. I don't know if Caitlin had her own car. I don't know. Maybe she drove her parents back. I don't know. I would love to see video of who got in the car, which cars they got in, if Caitlin is there when they're all crowding into whatever car, because there is something about what she's saying here that is off.
And if you recall, who drove home from the waterfall to 34 Fairview?
My dad.
And about how long a drive is that from the waterfall to Fairview Road?
I would say like 5 or 6 minutes, give or take.
Again, I would say, so she's not telling us how long it took for them to get home. She's not telling you, well, when we were driving back, it took us 5 or 6 minutes. What she's saying is that's objectively how long the drive is. It's no different than if you or I were to Google the address of the waterfall to 34 Fairview Road.
And when you arrived to the house at 34 Fairview, do you recall where your father parked in relation to the house?
From what I can remember, he parked in the driveway. The driveway.
Oh, wow. So there's something really sensitive here. Look at her mouth. There's something about the cars in the driveway. It makes me wonder if her car wasn't already there. If Caitlin's Jeep wasn't already in that driveway at her parents' house. Because she is lying about something to do with the vehicles, the situation, the cars in the driveway. There's something that she doesn't want us to know about all this.
And if you know about how many other cars were in the driveway and when parked?
And every time he asks a question and she does that, just before she's about to answer, before she even hears the end of the question, it's been a lie. Every time. So we know whatever she's about to tell us isn't true.
I'm not sure. I know there was at least like 1 or 2, but I can't say for sure. I just don't really remember how many were.
I don't really remember. I can't say, which means she knows, but she can't tell us.
In the driveway at the time. I had like younger siblings in college at the time who would sometimes take some.
Okay, this is the rehearsed statement about what she's supposed to say. I had younger siblings in college who would like sometimes take the cars, blah, blah, blah. This is the garbage we heard from her father too.
Some of the cars,
and her mother.
I just don't remember for sure.
And if you know, essentially, they're within the driveway, there's a garage at the end of the driveway, is that correct?
Yes.
And there's a door on the left, door on the right, is that right?
Yes.
And do you recall whether or not your father pulled in the driveway on the left side or the right side in relation to those doors?
I don't remember.
Again, she does remember. She does exactly that same thing before he's even done asking the question. She decides she gives us that total BS face, like, I just don't know. I just can't tell you that.
And when you came into the house, do you remember how it was that you came from the vehicle to the house?
Yes. From what I remember,
Oh God. Every time she qualifies what she's about to say with, from what I can remember, what she says is not true.
I went in the front door, so I would have gotten out and walked.
I would have, not I did, I would have. So this isn't true. Caitlin went in the side door. That's what I'm getting from what she's saying.
On the brick path over to the front door area, walked up the steps, and then walked through the door that enters into like a foyer area.
And
Not true.
Just to be clear, sort of when you walk into that front door with the foyer area, what if anything's right in front?
So when I first walked in, I actually had seen my cousin Colin.
So this is the rehearsed testimony. She knew that Lally was going to ask her about this, and this is the story that her mother tells as well. They both try to tell us that they walked in the foyer, and lo and behold, right when they walk in, they see Colin walking out. Total fabrication, completely discrepant from not only what Colin tells us, but also what Brian Albert tells us. So this is a complete fabrication.
He was standing in the foyer area, and I remember I said to him, like, "Oh, hi, what are you doing?"
Again, totally nonsense, complete BS, not what happened. And Colin tells us something very different. In fact, Lally gives Colin the opportunity to correct his statement, to mention Caitlin, and he does not do that.
Now, Mr. Albert, just one last question. When it came to your arrival at 34 Fairview Road on the evening of, or the early morning of January 29th, when you were leaving, beyond your Uncle Brian and your Aunt Nicole, did you see anybody else older than yourself or anybody else related to that group come into the house that evening?
No.
And so you walk into the home in the front foyer area, that's where you run into your cousin Colin?
Yes.
How is Colin related to you as far as, how is he your cousin?
So Colin is Julie Albert and Chris Albert's son. So he's my first cousin.
And when you walk in, you sort of bump into him. Where was it that he was?
He told me that he was headed.
Not what he told you. Where was he going?
To my knowledge, he was going home.
Next question.
From the time that you walked in and bumped into Colin sort of in the foyer of the home, how long was it that he was in the home while you were there?
I would say.
All right, so she starts to say, I would say, and then it's objected to by Yannetti. And that's interesting because she then follows that up with a one-word answer, minutes. But it's a lie because it's not coming from memory. She's telling us once again, for like the 80th time, I would say. So this is a story. This is the story that she's supposed to tell us, but it is not what she remembers.
So how long was he in the home when you were there?
Minutes.
And from your group, this includes
Notice the lips.
yourself, your mother, your father, is that correct?
Sorry, what was that?
From your group, when you enter the home, that includes you, your mother, and your father, correct?
Yes.
And who, if anyone else from the waterfall, arrived at your home around the same time as yourself, your mother, and your father?
I believe that Brian Higgins was the next to arrive. I think he very shortly after came inside, after myself, my mom and dad.
So this is really interesting. And I'm playing it back in the editor, and I hear Caitlin saying,
I believe that Brian Higgins was the next to arrive. I think he very shortly after came inside.
She's saying very shortly after. Then she realizes that after alludes to an event that she didn't mention.
After myself, my mom and dad.
This would be just after John O'Keefe is killed. Then she says, after me, myself, my mom came inside. So this right here is actually an admission. This is her admitting that Brian Higgins came in after they had already been inside, after what happens with John O'Keefe. That's what she tells us.
I think he very shortly after came inside, after myself, my mom and dad.
And what we see here is a panic because she realizes that she used that phrase after, and then because she realizes what the implication is, she has to quickly get in there after myself, my mom, and my dad. And she kind of stumbles there, right? After myself, my mom, and my dad. Pretty grotesque stuff.
And so when Mr. Higgins comes into the house at 34 Fairview, are you already in the house?
I was already inside, yes.
And so do you have any idea what Mr. Higgins was driving that evening or where he parked it?
I do not.
So she knows exactly what he was driving and exactly where he parked. 100%.
And then once you come into the house, when you come into the house, where is it within the home that you go?
So I walked in through the foyer, and then I took a right turn, which leads into like the dining room area. And that's where my brother Brian and two of his friends were just sitting around the dining room table. So I said happy birthday to him and was just kind of hanging out in there for a little bit.
All right, so that part, this part about her walking into the kitchen or dining room and seeing her brother, that's the one memory that I think she does have about what happened that night. But that's the only memory she has. And it's interesting because she never says anything but this. This is the only memory she has about allegedly hanging out at the house for what is supposed to be 2 hours.
And the friends that you observed in that sort of kitchen dining area, the friends of your brother Brian, little Brian, what were their names?
Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel.
And were those people that you were familiar with prior to this evening in January 28th?
Yes.
Familiar with them as their friends of your little brother?
Yes, exactly.
And with regard to the house, after yourself, your mother, and your father arrived, and then Mr. Higgins after that, who, if anyone else, from the waterfall came to the house that you saw?
My Aunt Jen and my Uncle Matt McCabe.
And when your Aunt Jen and your Uncle Matt McCabe arrived, where was Colin?
Colin had left by then.
Objection. And when Mr. and Mrs. or your uncle and your Aunt McCabe come in, where is it that they go within the home?
I believe they did a similar thing. They either entered through the dining room or through the kitchen area, but the dining room and the kitchen are like open floor, kind of all the same room. So we were just all kind of hanging out in that area.
Yeah, so you'll notice that she's doing a lot of distancing again. I believe, kinda. We were all just kinda. And every time she uses just and kinda together, it's a lie. So this is not true. Whatever she's telling us right now isn't true.
And if you know about how long a period of time were you at your parents' house on Fairview Road that is?
I would say an hour 45, latest 2 hours, but around like an hour and a half, an hour 45.
Right. I mean, she just botches this completely. This is just, I don't think you need to have any, behavioral analysis experience to realize what a botched statement this is. Who says an hour 45? Have you heard anyone besides maybe like your toddler who's learning about time? Have you ever heard anybody speak that way when they're answering a question about how long you were at wherever you were? So this is just not true. And it's also not coming from memory. She says, I would say, again, it's the story. Why is she lying about how long she was at her parents' house?
Yeah, I can't say for sure. It's an estimate.
And for the balance of the time that you were there, were you in that same sort of kitchen dining room area?
Yes.
And I also want you to think about this. Why can't she say for sure? If you knew, think about how many times, how important this night is in the lives of these people. Okay? Let's just pretend like they're not indicated in any of this. We'll just pretend like they're just the witnesses they want us to believe they are. We're talking about the night that a police officer was found dead on her parents' front lawn. It's the kind of event where every detail before and after is really cemented in your mind. It's not her boyfriend, which could change the details in her mind, could make it foggier because that then would be her trauma. This is not her trauma. It's something she's removed from, but close enough to have it certainly be an incredibly impactful experience for her. And it's plagued them ever since. You think that Caitlin's not reminded every day about this? Every single day. So the fact that I can't tell you how long I was there is absurd. It's absurd. She's hiding something and she's indicting herself in this. Whatever happened, Caitlin had a role. I have no doubt about that because there is bold-faced lying going on here. Just bold-face. And this is a crime, what she's doing right now. Why would you put yourself in such danger unless the possible risk, the cost of telling the truth is much greater than the potential risk of getting caught lying? And one other thing that I didn't mention yet, you'll note that she had a very tough time saying Karen Reed, saying the name Karen Reed. And why would that be difficult unless you are carrying some kind of information about the fact that she's innocent? Wouldn't you, if you really believe that Karen Reed did this, wouldn't you be eager to say her name over and over again? If you believe Karen Reed is guilty, wouldn't you want to say something about her, whether it's even incriminating or not? You think she's the guilty one. Why would you be tiptoeing around her name? Unless you don't believe that she's guilty, unless you know she's not. And there's guilt, terrible guilt, because you know what really happened.
And what is it that you were doing as far as you and the group doing in that area of the house?
We were just kind of hanging out.
Okay. We were just kinda. This is a lie. This is a lie. This is the way that she distances herself from a lie. And she has done it every time she uses just kind of. So this, whatever she's about to tell us, is a total lie.
I remember that my mom had grabbed like a small speaker and put some music on. We had a couple drinks and everyone was just kind of like having a good time, hanging out.
There's just kind of likes all over this. Just kind of. It is total BS.
We said happy birthday to Brian.
And that had already happened. Remember, the first thing she does when she walks in is says happy birthday to Brian. Why are we doing that again?
And that was kind of it.
Kind of it. That was kind of it, which means it was not it at all. And this is the time of the crime.
And
Look at her lips. And now she starts moving around.
Ms. Albert, at any point in time when you were within, well, let me ask you this first. As far as the sort of demeanor or mood within the house, similar to how I'd asked you at the waterfall, did any of that change once you returned back to your parents' house at Fairview Road?
No.
So everyone getting along, no arguments, no tension, anything you observed?
Correct, yeah.
Now,
Right. She can't even answer that directly. Yeah. Yeah, right.
beyond the people that you just described, did anyone else come into your house, or into your parents' house that evening while you were there?
No.
And specifically, Mr. O'Keefe and or his significant other, Ms. Reed, at any point in time while you were there, did they come into your house?
No, neither of them ever came into the home.
All right. So this is just, again, these people just screw up time and again and just screw themselves. No, neither of them ever came in to the home. Not my home, not our home, not my parents' house, not my brother's house. The home, distancing once again from the house. And this, no, neither of them ever came into the home, is not the way you would answer this question. This is not the way honest people talk. If you were asked, did you see somebody come into your house? What would you say? No. They didn't come into the house. You definitely wouldn't say, no, neither of them ever came into the home. I mean, this is just such a lie. It's tough to even listen to her because she's just so totally full of it. Just so totally full of it.
Now, with regard to the people that you were describing before, at any point in
Notice the mouth.
time, did the people in the kitchen dining room area, any of them leave that area of the house?
I think when my mom, my dad, and I first got there, I believe my dad went upstairs to grab the dog to let her out. So he did that, and then I think there was another period of time where my dad might have been showing, or maybe my mom or my dad were showing Brian Higgins, like family photos of one of my brothers, who's in the Marines. So that would have been in like the family room area, which
Would have been if it had happened. Would have been in the family room area. So, of course, this is that rehearsed, ridiculous story that they all tell. And I'll just tell you that when you have 10 people or 5 people and they're all saying the same thing, exactly the same thing, it's a lie.
I know at one point my husband and his friend Brian were in our family room, so I kind of went in there and was talking to them. We had some shelves on the wall that just had a bunch of pictures, old pictures from our wedding or when Brian was in the Marines, so we would just kind of look at them, laughing, talking about them. We stood in there for a little bit talking, and then eventually we just moved into the kitchen area where everybody else was.
My sister was over more towards like the counters and the sink, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were, there's like a room right off of the kitchen, like a TV room, and they were in there just talking. I think Nicole had like put up some new pictures, so, or maybe the son and the Marines, they might have been looking at a picture. Vaguely have a faint memory of that.
It's just so clear that for whatever reason, wink, wink, when they first arrived home, everybody thinks they've got to find a way to take Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert away from everybody else. And this is the ridiculous way that they have chosen or elected to take these guys and remove them from the party.
still is like there's an open doorway, so it's not like the door was shut or anything. But other than that, we all kind of stayed within that dining room kitchen vicinity.
And if you're not trying to defend yourself here, if you're not trying to come up with an excuse, why tell us that there's no door? Right? Because think about this. You're just hanging out and, a couple of people in that party, whoever you're with, just walk away to go look at pictures. Would you make a point to say, oh, it's not like at any point we didn't see them? It is just so incriminating. Like it's beyond, it's wild to me. It blows my mind how incriminating what she's saying is. It's inconceivable.
Now, with reference to the dog, that was a family dog, is that right?
Yes.
And your family had the dog when you still lived on Fairview Road with your parents?
Yes.
And what was the dog's name?
Chloe.
And with respect to letting the dog out, can you describe to the jury sort of what that process entailed? Was it on a leash, or how would the dog be let out?
Sure. So we had like a fenced in backyard and we had a back door. So we would just kind of open the back door, let her out. She would kind of do her thing and then she would come back in when she was done.
All right. So the first part of this statement seems true, but there's something about the second part of the statement that is funky, because we see her infamous just kind of. So that means that maybe at one point it would have been true that they would have let her out and she would have just kind of done her thing. But remember what we're talking about. This is Chloe going outside, and we know that at some point she attacks John. And we also know from Nicole Albert's testimony that this dog has jumped over the fence on at least a couple, probably a number of occasions. So it's possible that what she's thinking about here, she's lying to us with the second part of this statement, is about Chloe getting out. And so maybe originally there was no problem with just letting her out because of the fence, and then she'd come back. But eventually that changes. And certainly we know that it would have been, a problem that night.
And your father took care of that when they got home from the waterfall that evening?
Yes.
In the family room that you were talking about, where your father and or your mother and Mr. Higgins were, as far as the photographs, where is that in relation to the dining room kitchen area, and specifically, can you see into that area from the dining room kitchen?
Into the family room?
Yes.
Yes. So there's just sort of it's like a doorway, but there's no door there. It's pretty open. And if you're standing in the dining room or the kitchen, you can see into the family room.
So we have another infamous. So you just kinda can see into the family room from the dining room kitchen area. Well, we of course know, just because we've seen the layout of the house, that you can see partially into that room. So it's not entirely true to say that, you can see, because it's not open. So it depends, of course, on where you are standing in either room as to whether you'd be able to see whoever was in the other room, right? So if I'm in the dining room or the kitchen, based on where the doorway is, if I'm all the way by the sink in the kitchen, am I going to be able to see into the family room? No. And conversely, if I'm in the family room all the way by the sliding door, am I going to be able to see into the kitchen? No. So this statement isn't entirely true. It's that simple.
For the most part.
Right. For the most part.
Now, you at that point were not living at the address on Fairview Road, is that right?
Correct.
And as far as the people that were at the house who did not live at the Fairview home on that night, who was the last person to leave?
I was the last person to leave.
And prior to your departure from the house, sometime hour 45 or so after you got there, can you describe the...
Notice how he uses exactly the same language that she used, hour 45 or so, right? So that very weird language, he tries to normalize by using it in how he asks her the question. And I've noticed now with Lally on a number of occasions, he does exactly that. He uses language that people themselves use in their testimony, and then he asks them in exactly the same way that they have stated something previously in their testimony. So he cleverly, actually, I have to give him this. This is a clever thing to do. He tries to normalize that very strange way that she took out any commitment from what she was saying when she said she was there for hour 45 or so. And he throws it back at her. He's such a snake. He just really is. He's a disgusting individual, Adam Lally.
Order in which the other people that you just described were there, what order did those people?
I don't remember the order in which everybody left. But I do remember that Sarah Levinson, Julie Nagel, my aunt Jen, and my uncle Matt, they all left in one car, and then Brian Higgins left. But I just don't remember the order in which it was probably within like a couple minutes of each other. But I just don't remember exactly who left first. And then I left pretty shortly after everyone else as well.
All right, so this one is funky. And the thing with Caitlin, she starts out saying, I don't remember, I really don't know. Like she's telling you, reducing any commitment to the words that she's saying, right? She's basically distancing. She's saying, I'm not going to take any responsibility for what I'm about to say. Then she goes on to give us pretty exact statements. She tells us these guys, Jen, Matt, Sarah, and Julie leave all together. Then a few minutes later, Brian leaves, and then she leaves. So she gives us exactly the order of people that left and pretty much almost down to the minute when they left. But then says, but I'm not taking any responsibility for what I am telling you, for the order that anybody leaves in, or for what time they left. Right? So it's like, well, if she doesn't believe, or if she's not committed to any of the words coming out of her mouth, why should we believe anything that she's saying? And by the way, none of this is coming from memory. These are all sort of known, quote unquote, known facts about the case, about where people were from, the grand jury testimony. So, can you believe this? Of course not. Why do we believe something that she doesn't believe?
Now, during the time that you were hanging out in that dining room, kitchen area of the home, at any point in time was your attention drawn to the outside of the house? Hear anything, see anything outside of the house?
I did not.
Okay, that's a lie.
And with respect to the front area of the house, at any point in time, was there any discussion that you recall about anything going on in that area?
I don't recall a discussion going on about anything happening out front, except for at one point,
At one
Let me
point.
hear her answer first. Except for what? At one point?
At one point, I remember that Julie Nagel's brother was supposed to pick her up. So I knew that there was some communication where she told him, never mind.
So throughout this testimony, when she uses the phrase at one point, something very questionable comes out of her mouth next. For example, at one point, I know I saw Colin, right? And I was like, oh, what are you doing here? Yeah. So
You don't need to pick me up. You can go home. I'm going to go home with Jen and Matt.
Now, as far as who picked you up from the house that night?
My boyfriend.
And Mr. Morris came to the house in Fairview Road and picked you up at some point, about an hour and 45 minutes or so after you arrived there, is that correct?
Yes.
And recall what Mr. Morris was driving on that particular evening?
I remember that he actually was driving my car. Which is a 2019 white Jeep Cherokee.
here's the problem with Miss Caitlin's statement here. We know that she still has the car based on how she tells us that it is a 2019 Jeep Cherokee, and she takes ownership of it as though she still has it. It is, not it was, her car. The problem is, every time that Miss Caitlin uses the word actually, it's been a lie. And so we know she's not lying about the fact that that was her car. And we know that she even still has that car. So then what could she be lying about? This is what I'm saying. Based on Caitlin's statement, I don't think Tristan was driving her car. I think she had her car. And this right here, and the way she answers this question, makes me think that this whole story about him coming to pick her up in her car was manufactured for some reason. So ask yourself, why? Why would they have to manufacture Tristan coming to pick her up in her car? Something isn't right. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And about her recounting of the events as it pertains specifically to these cars, her Jeep and Tristan, his Taurus, and whether or not he came to get her, dropped her off at the waterfall, whether or not he dropped her off at the waterfall at all. Like, how did she get to her parents' house without a car? Because Tristan didn't drop her off. He meets her there, but he doesn't drop her off at 34 Fairview. She was already there. So how'd she get there without her car? And then if she had already had her car, why would she have called Tristan to come to the house? Right? So there's something just very unsettling about the situation with the cars, about who was driving, and about why Tristan would have come to pick her up.
Ken, did he call you, text you? How did you know that he was there?
I believe that we texted, and that's how I was informed that he was out front.
So you receive a text, something to the effect of here, and then you go outside?
Yes.
And when you went outside, if you recall, what was the weather like when you were coming out of the house?
When I walked outside, I remember, again, the snow was coming down a lot. I remember, like, sort of trying to watch my step because
Here we go, like, sort of.
the stairs in the brick path were pretty snowy, and I didn't want to slip. So as far as weather, yeah, I remember it was actively snowing, and I was trying not to slip.
These are the
And
rehearsed. This is the rehearsed testimony. These are the things that Tristan also remembered. So this is all rehearsed.
that's pretty much what I can remember.
And do you recall where it was that your boyfriend, Mr. Morris, parked the car in relation to the house when he arrived?
I believe he parked in the driveway.
So you would have come down the steps, down the walkway to the driveway area, correct?
Yes.
And who drove from Fairview Road to back home that evening?
Tristan did.
Now, if you recall, when Mr. Morris, I'm assuming, backs out of the driveway, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
When he backs out of the driveway, where does the vehicle go in relation to the house?
We went up Fairview Road, so towards the flagpole in our yard. I remember the windshield wipers were on, and I remember he was driving very cautiously, 10 and 2.
So this is part of the rehearsed testimony about how it was snowing and the windshield wipers were on and he was at 10 and 2, right? But you can kind of picture Tristan like that. But I think that it's just fabrication. Again, Tristan says almost exactly the same thing that she is saying, which is, almost always, indicative of people lying. And this is really what originally Tristan's lying about this was what ultimately made me start to think that maybe they had left earlier in the night, that maybe they had left closer to 12:30 than 2, because they didn't leave when it was snowing. And it's very clear that they were not driving while it was snowing. I mean, that is the reason that I believe that Caitlin left 34 Fairview long before they are claiming, and very likely immediately following the incident with John, because somebody had to take the dog out of the house, and the only person available at that time that was at the house, unless there's somebody else that shows up, another sibling of hers that shows up to take the dog away, it had to have been a family member. There's nobody else, not even an uncle. Chris Albert wasn't taking Chloe. It had to have been a sibling, a family member, one of the pack for this dog. So unless they shot the dog, and I'm 90% sure they did not, it would have been Caitlin that took this dog off the premises, and it would have happened probably immediately after the incident. So Caitlin was not driving at 2:00 in the morning, and neither was Tristan.
And I remember thinking to myself, oh, the snow is coming down pretty hard.
Just newsflash. When people do this kind of, like, I remember thinking, they think it sounds good. They think that it makes them sound credible. But because efficiency is the law of speech and the law of everything that governs human experience, this isn't the way that people talk. It's a lot. It drains you energetically far more to have to try to remember what you were thinking at another moment in time than it does to just recount exactly what happened. And so when you hear people going back and trying to remember, oh, I had this conversation with my mom and she said this and I said that, it sounds good because people that are lying think, oh, it makes sense that if I remember the nuances of this detailed conversation, it sounds better, sounds more legitimate. But that's just not how honest people tell you what happened. Not when they're being interrogated, not in a situation when they're, on the witness stand.
Outside or looking at the house or the front lawn area of the home?
I was not. Once I got inside the car, my attention was on him, and we were.
Interesting. So you will know, you probably don't notice it, but I slowed down this testimony just a tiny bit, because when you're really trying to investigate about who's telling the truth and what they really are saying, seeing the nitty gritty is what it's all about, catching all of the little tiny minutia that most people aren't looking at. And that includes the exact way that people use words. So when I first saw this, I didn't catch that she said I was not. I heard it as wasn't, which is my bad. So hearing it now, slowed down, I can see that this isn't true. She was looking at the house. She was looking at the house. Now, why would you be looking at the house? When she is leaving 34 Fairview on that night, why would she be giving her attention to the front of the house? So you can ask yourself and answer that yourself.
Having a conversation, so I hadn't been looking out the passenger window towards my house at really any point.
Yeah, so that's a lie.
Your head was turned towards your boyfriend who's driving the car to the left of you as he's driving away from you.
Yes.
Nothing further on.
What makes it so easy, I think, for her to lie throughout this, in many instances, with lying by saying yes or no or whatever, is the whole thing is a performance. She's acting. I mean, listen, if you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you, right? I mean, it is just so clear that this is a performance in every way. So if you go into this knowing that it's a performance, then you don't expect to tell the truth. You're expecting to lie all the way through.
Mr. Yannetti?
Now, I will say that before we get into the cross-examination, there's a lot I'm going to leave out because a lot of this is just not important for us. How much time she spent with Katie McLaughlin or with Courtney Proctor, it's just not that important. She admits to spending time with Katie and Courtney, so it just isn't an important detail for us. I would have loved for them to spend a lot more time asking questions about Chloe, asking questions about when she came and went from the waterfall and then left 34 Fairview. That's what I would have focused more on. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on cross-examination, but there are a few things that I want to make sure that we get in. So let's see here.
Now, on January 28th of 2022, you went to the waterfall with your boyfriend, Tristan Morris, correct?
Yes.
And
Now that's a lie. She's lying. We know she's lying.
ultimately, he left and you stayed, correct?
Yes.
The reason that you stayed is you wanted to go back to 34 Fairview, your old home, to be there by midnight when your brother was turning 23, correct?
Not necessarily. My plan was always to stay and just spend some time with my mom and my aunt. But
So listen to that response. Really important question here. So Yannetti is asking, you were planning to go back to 34 Fairview to hang out with your brother because it was his birthday. And she says, no, it was always my plan to stay because I wanted to hang out with my mom and my aunt. That's what she says right here, right now. Her words.
Tristan left very early because he knew that he was going to have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning shoveling or plowing. So my plan was never to go back with him.
My plan was never to go back with him because he knew he was going to get up early and go shovel or plow. I mean, this is very clear. Very clearly, this is what she's telling us right now. The plan all along was for me to stay over at my parents' house and Tristan was going to go plow. Period.
But it wasn't necessarily because it was my brother's birthday. It was just what my plan was for the night.
Now, remember, she's not thinking about what she's saying here. What she's thinking about was the question that Yannetti asked, which is interesting. He was asking about her relationship with her brother, essentially. It's odd that she's so defensive about this. It doesn't make any sense. It's a weird thing for her to want to argue about. Like, why does it matter whether you were there to see your brother for his birthday or just go hang out with your mom? I mean, it's just a weird, makes you think that her and her brother are not close at all or something. And I'm not going to read into it, but it's a weird thing for her to be so defensive about. And yet, because she's focused on her relationship with her brother, she doesn't realize what she's saying.
Certainly the fact that it was your brother's birthday didn't deter you from going back, right? In other words, the fact that it was your brother's birthday didn't cause you to hesitate to go back. You wanted to be there, right?
Well, my brother Brian wasn't at the waterfall.
No, I'm talking about, let's start over. And you planned to go back to 34 Fairview, did you not?
At some point in time, that was spoken about, and I agreed to go back to 34 Fairview, yes.
Okay. And you went back there to see your family, correct?
Yes.
Including your brother Brian, whose birthday it was, correct?
Yes.
That was your parents' home, right?
Yes.
You grew up there.
Yes.
You were comfortable there.
Yes.
There was plenty of room at the house, correct?
In what sense?
A bunch of bedrooms.
Yes.
Not all of them were taken up, correct?
At that time, correct.
No problem with you staying there overnight, correct?
Correct.
And when you made the decision to go there after the waterfall, you knew that there was a snowstorm that was starting, correct?
Yes.
And you've already testified that when you went back to 34 Fairview, you saw your cousin Colin Albert inside the home, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you walked in and he was one of the first people that you saw, correct?
Correct. He was standing in the foyer area. And I remember I said to him, like, oh, hi, what are you doing?
He's been over your house many times, correct?
Correct.
You're close with him as your first cousin, are you not?
I am.
And your brother Brian Jr. is close with him as well, correct?
Yes.
Colin Albert is close with your parents, correct?
Yes.
He's certainly welcome at your parents' home, correct?
Correct.
And it was certainly not shocking to see your first cousin, Colin Albert, at your home, correct?
Correct. Like, oh, hi, what are you doing?
You know, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, I just stopped by to see Brian, but I'm about to leave. My ride's about to be here.
Right. So why then did she recount a conversation where she was like, oh my God, what are you doing here?
And you had a brief interaction with him, correct?
Yes.
That was sort of toward the foyer of the house?
Yes.
And then you continued deeper into your parents' home and you saw other people there, correct?
Yes.
Where did you go within the home after you had seen Colin?
I believe I entered through the foyer into the dining room area.
And when you were there, you saw your brother Brian, whose birthday it was, correct?
Yes.
He had two friends with him, Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson, in that same area.
Yes.
You greeted them as well.
Yes.
And that's where your attention was focused, fair to say?
I would say that once I said hello to them, I didn't just sit with them three. I sort of was walking around. I wouldn't say my attention was solely focused on them three, but I did greet them, yes.
And where you were walking around within the kitchen dining room area?
Yes.
And once you greeted Colin and left him, it's fair to say that you then were not looking over your shoulder monitoring what Colin was doing or where he was going, correct?
Correct.
And while you were in the kitchen dining room area, the door to the basement was kind of blocked from your view, was it not?
If I'm in the dining room area, there is a spot in there where I could see it, but I don't believe I could see the basement door, no.
Right. And from your vantage point, the door to the basement's kind of blocked from the area that you were in.
For the most part, yes.
And you weren't watching Colin to see where he went after you left him, correct?
Correct.
And you never saw him leave the house physically, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Albert, I'd like to go back
Right. So we're at the next
to...
day.
Now, you testified that you knew Brian Higgins prior to January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes.
You knew him as a good friend of your father's, correct?
Yes.
He arrived at 34 Fairview Road, your parents' home, on January 29th of 2022 after you got there, correct?
Again, yes, because me and my parents were the first ones inside from what I remember.
This is me interrupting your programming to remind you to like this video right now. And don't forget to subscribe. Like this video. All right, so there's a lot of distance there, right? Like, she doesn't want to say it.
Did you see what Brian Higgins drove to get there?
I did not.
You did not
She did.
see where he parked his vehicle.
I did not.
She did.
At some point you saw him inside the home, correct?
Yes.
And he made it into the kitchen and dining room area where you were, correct?
Yes.
You agree that at some point Brian Higgins and your father, Brian Albert, left that area to go to another room, correct?
Yes.
So it's fair to say there was at least some portion of the night when Brian Higgins and your father were out of your field of vision, correct?
I don't agree with that because the room that I had seen them go into has an open doorway and you can see right into the family room that they were in. So I could actually see them in there.
Gotcha.
All right, so this is interesting. She says, I don't agree with that because the room that they went into, I could actually see them in there. And that, if we look at what Karen Reed said, and if we believe it, right? If we believe Karen Reed and what she tells us about the last time she saw John alive.
And we arrived at 34 Fairview. It didn't look like there was any soiree going on. It didn't look inviting. The outside was dark and I didn't see any familiar looking vehicles. And I said, John, can you make sure we're welcome? And he said, I'll run in. So when John got out of the car at Brian Albert's house, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder. And he walked up the driveway, and John always kind of skipped and walked at the same time. He was always in a rush. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, which is the side front door. And he opened the door and went to walk in. And I waited probably a minute and he doesn't come. And it only took like 2 or 3 minutes for me to be irritated. So I called him. I didn't want to wait for him to respond to a text.
All right. Thanks, Karen. So let's listen to this again.
I don't agree with that because the room that I had seen them go into has an open doorway and you can see right into the family room that they were in. So I could actually see them in there.
Gotcha.
So I sat with this for a while and went back and forth. But ultimately, once again, this is a lie from Caitlin, and here's why. If I were defending having seen them in that room, what I would have said is, no, I don't agree with that because I actually saw them go in there. And what Caitlin says is I had actually seen them go in there. So that's not true. And she throws in an actually, which makes it sound convincing in the moment. But to this point, anytime Miss Caitlin uses actually, it's been a lie. So I think we can conclude pretty definitively now with everybody, Jennifer McCabe, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Miss Caitlin using this story about going into the family room to look at pictures on the wall. We can say pretty conclusively that that is a fabrication, that that's a story to use for why Higgins and Albert were removed from the group for a period of time when everybody first arrived at the house. And if you think about it, if that's true, if Karen is sure that John O'Keefe opens that door, and there's no other outcome possible, right? Because he opens the front door, like the first part of the door. So then the next part would be open the second door and walk in, right? Because each of the front doors have like a glass door, like a storm door, and then the door that opens into the house. So he walked into the family room. And if that is true, and we believe Caitlin and this statement right here, then what she just told us is she saw John walk in the house.
How long were you there when Brian Higgins and your father, Brian Albert, were there?
Inside the family room?
I'm talking from that whole night. When you're at 34 Fairview, how much time lapsed between the time you first saw Brian Higgins and Brian Higgins left the residence?
I can't say for sure. If I had to estimate, I'd say an hour and a half.
Okay. And so your testimony before this jury is for that full hour and a half, there was no time when Brian Higgins and your father, Brian Albert, were out of your field of vision.
Not that I can remember.
Now, earlier that evening,
All right, so there's a lot of moving here, so this is not true.
on
Look at all the
Friday,
moving
January
around,
20,
right? Like, so that was a stressful question for her. That was a tough, she didn't know where to, she wasn't sure how to answer that question. And that was a very stressful question. In fact, I wonder, this is one of the more stressful, clearly, viscerally stressful responses that we've seen from her throughout this testimony. So that was not an easy question for her to answer.
8th, you made plans to go out with your mom, Nicole Albert, your aunt, Julie Albert, and your boyfriend, Tristan Morris, correct?
Yes.
From the beginning of that night, the plan was for Tristan to go home early, correct?
Yes.
And that was because he had to get up early to plow or shovel, correct?
Yes.
He had to get up really early, correct?
Yes.
The plan was for him to shovel or plow at 3 a.m.?
He was, from what I recall, he was on standby for like 3. It could have been any time after that.
Oh, I see. So it could have been that he had to get up at 3 or maybe a little bit later, correct?
Yes.
And it was for that reason that when he was at the waterfall with you, he only had a couple of drinks, correct?
From what I remember, yes.
And from the beginning of the night, you knew that it was going to be iffy as to whether he would be able to get much sleep at all, correct?
It wasn't really something we discussed.
Well, the reason he was going home early and only having a couple of drinks was to see if he could catch some sleep before what would be a very difficult work morning, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that in order for him to get any sleep, he couldn't stay at the waterfall very long, correct?
Yes.
And that's why he left early.
Yes, he went home to rest. We didn't speak about whether or not he would be sleeping.
It wouldn't shock you if he tried to go to sleep.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
You stayed believing that Tristan was going to try and rest and sleep, correct?
Yes.
And the plan when he left you was that you wouldn't see him again until after he was done with his plowing that morning, correct?
That's incorrect.
All right. So this is a lie. And it's interesting because the day before, she had no problem admitting that this was the plan. She tells us, and it's very clear.
My plan was always to stay and just spend some time with my mom and my aunt.
I intended to go back to my parents' house. And the whole conversation during that line of questioning was focused around her brother and whether or not she was at the house at 34 Fairview after the waterfall to see her brother. And she's like, no, my plan was always to go back. We also know earlier on direct, she references being at the waterfall and going home, as in the last stop, as in 34 Fairview, not Easton. So there was no discussion. This whole thing about not wanting to get snowed in is a narrative, some story that they tried to conjure about why it would be that Tristan would have wound up coming to the house. And this is the reason why I believe Tristan must have come to the house, because otherwise, why involve him at all? If Tristan didn't actually, at some point, wind up at 34 Fairview, there would have been no reason to involve him, and you definitely wouldn't have involved him because the less people that are involved, the better. So there's no good reason to involve Tristan in this unless he was involved. And it makes me think that she did call him. But what complicates this is she was already at 34 Fairview. Tristan didn't drop her off. So this idea that he showed up with her car is a bit fishy. Because how, then, would she have gotten to her parents' house before they went to the waterfall? And if it wasn't to pick her up to take her home, then why was Tristan necessary? Why would she have dragged him to 34 Fairview if she already had her car? Now, there are a couple of answers to that. First, I could see this woman, even with the acting job she's doing, wanting him to come help her, like in a panic. Oh my God, there's a dead guy. Come help. There's a dead cop. Help. Help. We have to take Chloe out. Help. Come help, right? There's an emergency. Come here quick. So even if she wasn't 100% sure what it was she needed him for, could you imagine being in that situation and just wanting your significant other to be there with you? Yeah. And also knowing he's a big, strong guy, maybe there's something that he could be useful for, whether it's helping to make sure that the dog, if anything goes wrong, God forbid, there's another person there to drive her and this dog back to the house with her to her house. Maybe. I mean, for all we know, Tristan had a good relationship with Chloe. I mean, that could also be a factor. Who the hell knows? We don't know. But this story about him coming to save her from being stuck at her parents' house in a snowstorm is just nonsense. I mean, if we think about that, we play that all the way out, it doesn't make any sense. She would have been at home by herself because Tristan would have been out plowing and the next day would have been sleeping once he got home from plowing at 9 a.m, right? So why would she want to be home with him? He would have been sleeping all day. It would have been much more fun for her to be in the middle of the action with her parents. And why would she be in such a hurry to get so far away from these people who she's out partying with, seeing where the night takes them the night before? So all of that is contrived. All of that is a story. It's all just some kind of weird cover for why Tristan was really there. And this idea that Caitlin is running around, because she had her wedding 2 weekends ago, and at the bachelorette party is wearing a shirt that says something about how she's high maintenance, because that's the excuse that Tristan used in his testimony in the first trial.
From your discussions with Caitlin, what was the reason that you went back to 34 Fairview to pick her up and bring her home?
Objection.
Well, allow it. Why'd you do that?
Well, she's high maintenance. I didn't really want to have to deal with her.
But why you came and picked her up without question, without asking questions, is kind of disgusting when you realize the real reason why that whole story was fabricated. Right? It's like, think about this. You're Brian Albert, or you're Nicole Albert, or you're Jennifer McCabe. You're really living two lives. Most of the people in your life, you're trying to pretend that you are innocent, that you're just a witness, that Karen Reed is the guilty one. And you're running around trying to portray yourself as a normal person, didn't do anything wrong. But underneath that, and on the surface, your daughter's running around wearing a shirt that says, I'm high maintenance, directly quoting from Tristan's testimony in the first trial. But underneath that is the truth, which is that these people are covering up and framing the murder of a Boston police officer on an innocent woman. And even if you, Caitlin Albert, were not at all responsible for this man's death, you are responsible for helping to frame an innocent woman. And what kind of character, what kind of a human being does that? And then runs around with a shirt that says, like, how funny it is, I'm high maintenance. It also reminds me of the moment during Alan Jackson's cross-examination where Jennifer McCabe laughs out loud at the idea or the thought or the memory of Carrie Roberts screaming at Karen Reed to shut the fuck up. And she has like a real raw, like emotional moment on the stand where she's actually laughing out loud and then trying to hide immediately that she's laughing. It's disgusting. It's a deplorable moment. And it makes you want to, as a human being, we want to just ignore that. We want to just like, shrug it off. Like it's not that important because it's so out of context. It's hard to process what that means in that moment. But what it actually means is this is like an evil human being who at their core thinks it's funny as she thinks back to the moment where she is trying to pretend that she just stumbled upon the dead body of a Boston police officer and then winds up framing that guy's girlfriend.
So is it your testimony that the plan from the beginning was that Tristan was going to drive from Canton to Easton and get some rest, and then drive from Easton to Canton to pick you up so that he could take you back from Canton to Easton? That was the plan?
It may not have been set in stone, but it was definitely spoken about, and then that's what ended up happening. Yes.
Have you ever told anyone that before, Ms. Albert, that the plan from the start of the night was that Tristan was going to make 4 trips total from Canton to Easton, Easton to Canton, Canton to Easton? Have you ever told anyone that before?
I don't remember if I mentioned that to anybody.
That was the first time you've ever said that just now before this jury. Would you agree with that?
I believe so.
Oh my God.
Almost 2.5 years after January 29th, correct?
Correct.
I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. What?
Isn't it true
What?
that you
What's the big
decided
deal?
at 1:45 in the morning
No.
that it was important for you to get home?
No, it wasn't true, actually. That's not
At 1:45, around that time is when Tristan picked me up.
around that
A little
time.
bit after that, but I didn't want to get snowed in at my parents' house.
It was
Right. So there's the rehearsed statement. I didn't want to get snowed in at my parents' house. It's just nonsense. I can't even give it any airtime, guys, because I can't even do it anymore.
when Tristan picked you up at 1:45 a.m. Did you bring Chloe out of the house with you to take to your apartment?
No.
Well, look at that face, huh? So for the first time, all of a sudden, like the party's over for Miss Caitlin. She looks pretty concerned there. And then you'll see what she does just following her no.
Okay. On January 29th of 2022,
Yeah. Right. That reminder to keep her mouth shut. So she's busted there. All right. I think we're done with this, and you get the idea. I mean, if you want to take anything away from Miss Caitlin Albert and her testimony, what I would tell you to take away is that this is absolutely a contrived story. The intent was basically to approach this like she was, trying to win an Oscar. And for that reason, there are very few moments where she's even using her memory to recall what is going on that night. The vast majority of anything that she's asked on direct comes from what she knows about what happened that night, not from what she remembers. What that testimony did was bring to light and call into question many more questions than answers. Because she's caught lying. So. Where to go from here? We will see.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through eyes covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything.